Hello from the Finlandia Village Fitness Center and welcome to PhysioJo's Health Info. Today we are going to talk about the Transversus Abdominus, one of the deepest actually abdominal muscle, really important core muscle that's probably one of the easiest ones for people to start off with if you've never really strengthened your core muscles before. And we're going to talk about the Gluteus Maximus, the biggest of all the gluteus muscles. Those two muscles are really important when we're talking posture. And just for in your everyday activities, it's important to be able to recruit those two muscles and to keep strong. And there are ways to just get them going. We're going to talk more about that today. How to initiate, how to feel those muscles kicking in, how to get them going, how to wake them up. Because oftentimes those are, with muscle imbalances and injuries, those are two muscles that often get inhibited by other muscle groups. The transverse abdominis tends to be inhibited by the diaphragm that's working a little bit too hard, or the hip flexors, whereas the glutes, they often get inhibited by the hamstrings. Hamstrings work too hard and the glutes end up getting weaker and they atrophy, they get smaller. So we're going to teach you how to wake up these muscles today. Let's talk about transversus abdominis first. So when we're talking the abdominals, there's 4 different groups, 4 of them. Rectus abdominis is the one that's in the middle. So those are your 6-pack muscles. And then you got your internal and external obliques that are on the side. Those 3 muscle groups, they go from your rib cage to your pelvis. They don't touch your spine. So when I think core muscles, I think what muscle that contracts, that when contracted, will help stabilize your spine from injury. The most the one that will influence that or protect your back the most out of all of the abdominals is this 4th one we're going to talk about now, called the transversus abdominis. It takes off from your spine and it wraps around to the front. So it acts like a back brace or a corset. We have an internal back brace that's designed to help stabilize your spine and give the stability within this area. Anytime you're doing activities of daily living, such as lifting, carrying, pushing, pulling, or reaching, those are 5 things that will often lead to back injuries if you're doing it repetitively, or if you're using more of your back muscles and not really helping out with the core muscles that come towards the front. So transversus abdominis, get him nice and strong, wake him up with this exercise we're going to talk about today, and use it anytime you are lifting, carrying, pushing, pulling, or reaching, and you're going to be able to decrease the risk of injury to your back. Okay, so what does that look like? How do we engage or wake up the transversus abdominis? The best way is laying down. So I like starting people in a laying down position because it's easy. You're shutting everything else off. Keep your knees bent just so that your pelvis can be in a neutral position. On the inside of these bones here is where you're going to feel that muscle. So you need to put quite a bit of pressure in there to be able to feel the muscle contract. Now what you're going to do is pretend you have a string attached to your belly button and you're going to pull it down towards the floor. So as I do that, I don't know if you can see, but I can feel under my fingers that that muscle is contracted. And now I'm going to let go. And I'm going to engage again. And I'm going to let go. So if you can feel the muscle contracting when you pull down towards the floor, that bulging that you feel just on the inside of the bone here, that's your transversus abdominis. The exercise that you're going to do is holding that contraction for a count of 10 seconds while breathing normally. Okay, so it's very common, like I said before, that the diaphragm is the one that takes over for this muscle when it gets weak. So oftentimes I see people contract the muscle, but they're holding their breath. And the only way they can keep that muscle engaged is if they hold their breath, because they need for their diaphragm to help out. This exercise is going to help you relax the diaphragm and use only this muscle here. Holding it 10 seconds while breathing normally, then you relax and do it again. So 10 reps, 10-second hold while breathing. Okay, and in a video that's to come, we're going to go through the progressions of this one. So once you get really good at this and you can feel that you don't lose that contraction at all in the 10 seconds that you're holding it, you're ready to progress to the next exercise, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, now your glutes. Oh, I should have stayed laying down. That's okay. So your glute muscles are back here. There's 3 of them: Gluteus Maximus, biggest, medius, and minimus. They all have a different job. The one that tends to be, that would give people most problems and be a big issue when it comes to muscle imbalances, especially if you've got any kind of arthritis in the hip or in the knees, or chronic pain or injury in anything in the lower body or the back, is the gluteus maximus, the big one. And his main job is to do hip extension, so to bring your legs straight back. So the most common imbalance that you'll find there is that the hamstrings are doing all the work. People who have weak glutes tend to have overactive hamstrings. So we say that they're in a hamstring dominant pattern. So the hamstring's doing all, or if not all, most of the work for the glutes. So what we're gonna do is, again, in that same position as before, you can have a pillow under your head because it's going to be a whole lot more comfortable that way. In this position, we're going to do a bridge. So those of you that know how to do a bridge, you're lifting straight up like this. I, for one, and I'm going to say 90% of my patients that do a bridge in this position here, I can feel when I palpate, and I can feel it right now in myself, that I'm mostly using my hamstring muscles. If you're already in a hamstring dominant position, you don't want that. We want to find a position that will shut the hamstrings off and allow you to use your bum muscles a lot more. The way to do that is to have your feet as close to your bum as possible. Separate your feet so that they're shoulder width apart, and turn your feet outwards. From this position, lift your bum up towards the ceiling. Right away, I can feel my glutes kick in and my hamstrings are a lot more relaxed than they were before. And down. And you don't have to go very high. This is high enough. If you can only go a couple inches off the bed, that's fine too. As you go higher up here, then the hamstrings are going to want to kick in and help out a little bit more. So focus down here, because our goal right now is just to wake up your glutes and shut off the hamstring. Once you've got the hang of this, going nice and slow, you can progress to a little bit more complicated or weight-bearing position where you need to consider stabilizing your pelvis at the same time. We'll talk about that in the next video.